Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm sharing a New Year's card with the New Year bear from Gerda Steiner Designs. I printed it out on some Georgia Pacific 110-pound cardstock using my HP Inkjet 6700 printer, and I make sure always to choose just the regular setting, not the black ink only, or get some smearing since it is a digital stamp. I then cut the image out on the stitched rectangles from Lawn Fawn. This is the largest of the small stitched rectangles that I use very often. To color the bear, I decided to go with brown, and I'm using one of my favorite combinations of brown, E3735, and I'll pull in a little bit of 33 as well. I actually have it all the way down to 31 too, E3735, 33, and 31. I'm not using them all in here, but I do find that I can usually blend almost any animal with those four colors, because it can go from a pretty dark to a pretty light brown. In order to color him, I'm starting with my darkest color first, although this bear has a lot more room than some of the stamps that I color, and so I did find myself doing a lot more blending and going back with different colors of marker and blending them in because there was enough space that I could layer on a lot of ink and not have to worry as much about bleeding. Although you did see I did get a touch of bleeding out on the bottom there, and I just used my colorless blender to push it back in, as you always can. I started by adding the darkest color to the areas with shadows, like where his feet meet his body or where his hat meets his body. Usually where things start, where they meet each other, there's going to be a shadow caused by that, the way that one is offset from the other. And so once I have him all blended out, I'll move on to the balloons. I used a little, W7 there for his nose. I didn't want to color a solid black, so I went with my darkest gray marker. For the balloons, I wanted to start adding some color into my image, and I had the idea of using blue and pink as my main colors because I want to keep it really bright and happy because, of course, it's a Happy New Year's card. And the person I had in mind, I thought she would really enjoy this color combination. So I'm using B06, B04, and B02 to blend out the balloons here, adding the darkest on the outside and then going through. I didn't show it all there because I'm using the same technique here on the hat and each balloon, just adding a little bit of the B06 to the very edges and then blending it out with B04 and B02 if need be. Then I'm going to use a touch of pink to fill in the hat. I had started with RV06 and I wasn't quite sure if that was dark enough, so I touched in a little RV07 as well. Once I finished coloring him, I wanted to pull that pink in more from his hat into the rest of the card, and so I am using Picked Raspberry Distress ink, which is pretty similar in color to that RV09 color that I used. And I just use the round blending foam tool and pull it in from the sides around the image, leaving a halo essentially around the image by pulling the ink close to the image but not quite on top of it. I find though that if you want to get a little bit closer to the image, the best thing to do is to blend off as much ink as you can till there's just a very little bit of ink left on the blender, and then you can bring it closer to the image without it really interfering with the Copic coloring and muddying the coloring. And so when it's just a light bit of ink, it works better. But I like the way that leaving the white area highlights the image and draws attention to it. Now, I could have just left 2015 and not added a sentiment because it's pretty clear what occasion this card is for, but I do remember having this Impression Obsession stamp set that allows you to put a sentiment for almost any occasion. It does that by each word is individually cut out, and so you can stack them together, and it's one of the largest and most versatile builder sentiment stamp sets that I've seen and that I own. There's some other great ones like from Newton's Nook, but they don't have the year aspect of it. So they have the word new, but they're missing the year, whereas this stamp set I find has almost everything you would want. The only trouble with it is very small sentiments, and so it definitely can't be the focal point of your card, which, like the Newton's Nook set that I previously mentioned, is really awesome because it has those large sentiments that can really be a focal point on a card. So I'm fussed with it a lot to try to get those to be straight. Even though my block has some grid lines, it wasn't quite enough, and I usually do recommend stamping it onto a scrap piece of paper to make sure that everything is lined up before you put it on your project. Now that I have my main panel complete, I wanted to add some pattern papers to the background, and I thought of this Amy Tangerine American Crafts collection because I knew it had the pinks and blues in it. But I also decided to tone it down a bit by using the light brown as the base of the card. And so it will also help to pull in a little bit the brown from the bear so that he's not the only brown in the whole card. You see here that I'm experimenting with some different elements of the collection. There's some vellum, there's some cutouts that I have that match the collection, and there's also a lot of different patterned papers in the collection that have lots of little designs on them, but I'm finding that most of those either have like a brown undertone or are just too many different colors for me. And so I picked just a simple blue and a simple pink, and I cut them and layer them behind the main image panel, and as I said, I used the simple brown paper as the final backing paper. Now I wanted to add a finishing touch, and I wanted it to be pretty celebratory, so I wanted some sparkle. And I went with these sequins. They're white iridescent sequins, so they do change color a little bit, and because they're, like most iridescent sequins, have kind of a touch of pink and blue when they catch the light, and so it coordinated well with my card. I'm using multimedia matte from Ranger to glue these down. You could also use glossy accents, but I prefer the multimedia matte because even if it does leak out the sides a little bit, it dries matte. You know that I like to use it for lots of different cards. And so once I get a good sprinkling of sequins spread throughout the image, that's going to be it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in seeing more crafty videos, you can subscribe to my channel. I'm going to leave some links below, including where you can find this digital stamp, which is free from Gerda Steiner Designs, so I definitely recommend you to go pick it up and create a Happy New Year's card for someone you love. Thanks for watching. Bye.